The stars above Earth were not what they seemed. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the sky, filled with dreams of space exploration, wondering what lay beyond the endless void. They never imagined that one day the stars would answer. And when they did, it was with the arrival of something far more terrifying than any alien they had ever imagined. The massive ships appeared out of nowhere, their dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. They moved silently, with a presence that felt like an omen. There were no warnings, no communication from the strange beings who piloted them. They simply descended, like gods from the heavens. At first, the world thought it was a hoax, a trick of some kind. But as the ships drew closer, humanity realized that this was no illusion. These were not visitors from a peaceful alliance, nor were they explorers. The invaders were powerful, their ships unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Each one was a colossal fortress of shining metal, humming with energy far beyond human technology. They had no need to speak, for their presence alone was enough to command attention. They hovered in the sky, casting shadows over the cities below, and the people trembled. As the ships settled into the atmosphere, their leaders made their first announcement. Through giant speakers that seemed to emanate from the very ships themselves, a booming voice echoed across the world. "We are the gods of the universe," it proclaimed. "Bow before us or face extinction." The world was thrown into chaos. Governments scrambled to respond, military forces mobilized, and every person with access to the news sat in stunned silence. People questioned the message. Were these truly gods, or were they something far worse? It seemed impossible. How could such beings be real? How could they have power like this, when humanity had only just begun to explore the far reaches of space? But the answer came swiftly, and it was undeniable. From the heart of the alien ships, a strange, powerful energy burst forth, leveling entire cities in seconds. The might of their weapons was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. It was not just firepower, it was a force of nature, crushing everything in its path. No military could stand against it, no weapon could even scratch the surface of their ships. These beings, whoever they were clearly in control. Humanity was faced with a terrifying choice: submit or die. The world's leaders met, arguing over the best course of action. Some believed they could negotiate, others thought they could hide or run, but deep down everyone knew the truth. Earth had no chance. The gods had come and their power was absolute. The idea that humanity could even dream of standing up to them seemed absurd. But one thing remained clear. The fear they instilled in people wasn't just about their power, it was about their confidence. These aliens believed they were gods, and they weren't afraid to remind everyone of it. People in the streets whispered, "What is it like to be so powerful?" It wasn't just fear, they were in awe. No one had ever seen anything like this. There was something in the air, a heavy sense of doom, as if this was the end of all things. For the first time, the human race realized they were not the apex beings of the universe. For all their accomplishments, they were nothing compared to these so-called gods. But even in the face of their unimaginable might, a question lingered in the back of every mind. How could they call themselves gods? The world watched as the aliens demanded that Earth surrender immediately. They wanted Earth's resources, control over its population, and complete submission. The terrifying part wasn't just their demands, it was how they delivered them. There was no negotiation, no room for compromise. These gods didn't care about Earth's people or history. They cared only about their own power and dominance. And, as the alien ships continued to hover above, humanity's greatest minds began to realize something. There was no help coming. No allies in the stars. Earth was alone in this fight, but something inside many of them refused to give up. There was a quiet, yet growing resolve to fight back, even if they didn't know how. The people of Earth had no idea how, but they wouldn't just lie down and die. And as the darkness of space loomed above them, something began to stir deep within the heart of Earth. The world's greatest scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked in secret, developing a plan. It was their last hope. For now, however, they were still trapped under the shadow of the false gods. The world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would humanity submit to the gods, or would they find a way to fight back? The first part of the story ends here, with Earth trembling beneath the weight of the alien presence. There is no turning back now. The gods had made their claim, and the future of humanity was hanging by a thread. The world had fallen silent after the aliens made their demands. Nations trembled, cities lay in ruins, and the people of Earth felt as though they were at the mercy of beings who called themselves gods. There was no place to run, no way to hide. Humanity was weak in comparison to the might of the invaders. But amidst this darkness, in the quiet corners of Earth's greatest minds, something was brewing. A plan, a secret. Hidden away in the most secure locations on the planet, the best scientists, engineers, and military strategists began to work together. They didn't have the power of the gods, nor did they have their technology, but they had something else: determination. Humanity might not be able to fight with strength, but they could fight with cunning. And so the plan was born. It was risky, dangerous, and unlike anything anyone had seen before, but it was humanity's only chance. The scientists and engineers had been working on something for years, a warship. But this wasn't just any warship. This was a ship built with a single purpose: to defeat the gods who had come from the stars. The engineers worked day and night, using every resource they could find to build it in secret. At first, it was nothing more than a blueprint, a dream. But as time passed, the warship began to take shape. The heart of the design was a massive, untested energy core, something capable of matching the strength of the alien weapons. The warship's hull was constructed from a new type of metal, one that was incredibly strong yet light enough to allow for speed and agility. The core of the ship was powered by a mysterious energy source that no one fully understood, but it was humanity's last hope. But the warship's creation came with its own set of problems. The aliens had an advantage of centuries of experience, their ships designed to crush entire civilizations with ease. The warship was still a prototype, untested and incomplete, and no one knew if it would even survive the first battle. Still, as the warship began to take shape, a sense of hope grew. This wasn't just another weapon. It was the embodiment of humanity's will to survive, to fight back. As the warship neared completion, the people of Earth began to see something they hadn't seen in weeks: hope. The warship was something they could believe in, something that gave them a reason to keep going despite the overwhelming odds. But as much as humanity believed in this ship, the true question remained: would it work? The final test came sooner than expected. A small group of the world's military leaders, armed with the best data they had on the alien forces, made the decision to send the warship out. The gods had already begun making their presence felt, destroying entire cities, making their dominance clear. It was time. The warship was not ready in the way the engineers had hoped, but it was the best humanity could do. The crew, consisting of the most skilled soldiers and scientists, climbed aboard. Their mission was simple: fly to the alien mothership and strike a decisive blow. It was a suicide mission. No one expected the warship to survive, but it had to be done. There was no other option. The gods would not wait. As the warship took off, the world watched. It was not a large ship, but it was a force to be reckoned with. The glowing energy core hummed, lighting up the darkened skies as the ship pierced through the atmosphere. For the first time since the gods' arrival, there was a feeling in the air. A feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity wasn't as powerless as the gods had believed. The warship hurtled toward the alien mothership, and the world held its breath. Would the warship's powerful core be enough to pierce through the alien armor? Would it even make it to the mothership alive? The people of Earth knew that this was their one shot. If the warship failed, humanity would have nothing left, and then the warship entered the aliens' territory. The alien mothership loomed ahead, massive and terrifying. The crew aboard the warship could feel the weight of the moment, the tension in the air thick with the realization that they were about to face their greatest challenge. The silence before the storm was almost unbearable. The first shot came from the alien ships. massive beams of energy that could obliterate anything in their path. The warship dodged, weaving through the deadly beams with surprising agility. The crew couldn't help but marvel at how the ship responded. Its design was working. They had a chance, a small chance, but a chance nonetheless. The first impact hit. The warship's powerful energy core fired back, sending a blast that struck the alien mothership's shield. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but it sent a clear message. Humanity was no longer helpless. As the battle raged on, the warship's crew pushed the limits of what the ship could do. The aliens were caught off guard, unsure how to respond to this unexpected threat. Humanity, with nothing but their wits and their warship, had challenged the gods themselves. And for the first time since the invaders arrived, the gods began to question their own invincibility. The hook. Was this the beginning of the end for the false gods, or was humanity just playing with fire? The battle raged in the cold emptiness of space, a clash between two forces that had never expected to meet. On one side, the alien mothership, towering, formidable, and seemingly invincible. On the other, humanity's warship, small, untested, yet holding within it the fierce will to survive. The warship's crew gripped their seats, their hands shaking as they steered their craft through the chaos. They had no illusions about the odds, but they had one thing the aliens didn't: determination. For the first few moments it seemed like the warship was nothing more than a fly buzzing in the face of a mighty dragon. The alien beams of energy cut through the void, striking the warship again and again. But the warship's new shielding technology held strong, absorbing the impact and deflecting some of the force. The crew watched in awe as the ship held together. They had expected to be reduced to space debris within seconds, but somehow, against all odds, they were still alive. The alien mothership loomed in the distance, its dark shape blotting out the stars. It was beyond huge, a fortress in space with weapons powerful enough to wipe out entire fleets. And yet, for the first time, it was on the defensive. The aliens fired relentlessly, but humanity's warship kept dodging and weaving, its agility far beyond what the invaders had expected. The warship was moving like a shadow, slipping through the beams of destruction with an almost unnatural grace. The warship's crew, though battle-hardened, could not help but feel the weight of their situation. Every second spent in the heart of this deadly fight felt like an eternity. They were outgunned, outmanned, and still very much in danger of being wiped out. Yet every time the warship narrowly avoided an alien blast, a sense of hope flickered. Perhaps humanity wasn't so weak after all. Then, the unthinkable happened. Their warship's captain, a former military officer who had seen countless battles in his career, gave the order. It was time to launch the ship's most powerful weapon, the energy core. It had been designed for this very moment. With a deep hum, the warship powered up its core, a brilliant light flooding the control room. The energy built up, gathering power like a storm ready to break. The crew held their breath, praying that this would be enough. The captain's voice cut through the tension. "Prepare to fire." In an instant, the warship released the concentrated energy, firing a beam so powerful that it tore through the darkness like a comet. The beam shot forward, a blinding flash of light streaking toward the alien mothership. Time seemed to freeze as the beam made contact. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a violent explosion, the beam struck the alien mothership's shields, causing them to flicker and collapse. The ship was still intact, but it had been wounded, its impenetrable defenses cracked for the first time. The crew of the warship cheered, their hearts pounding with excitement. They had done it. They had pierced the armor of the gods. But the victory was short-lived. The alien mothership quickly adjusted, its systems reactivating in a blur of motion. Within moments, the gods retaliated with a fury. The ship unleashed a wave of destruction, a concentrated blast that sent the warship reeling. The crew felt the impact like a punch to the chest, and the warship shuddered violently. The shields flickered, and alarms screamed throughout the ship. The gods weren't going to be defeated so easily. The warship, still intact but severely damaged, barely managed to stay on course. It had taken the first blow, and now the gods were angry. But the warship wasn't ready to give up just yet. Despite the overwhelming odds, the crew held their ground, adjusting their strategy in real time as they fought back. Each passing moment felt like a gamble. The warship wasn't invincible. Its energy core was running low, and the ship was taking heavy damage. But the crew refused to surrender. They could feel the weight of Earth's future on their shoulders. They were humanity's last hope, and they had to give everything they had. As the alien mothership closed in, preparing for another strike, the captain made a desperate move. The warship launched a series of decoys, small drones designed to confuse the alien weapons. While the mothership's systems locked onto the decoys, the warship dove into the heart of the enemy fleet, firing on all cylinders. The decoy tactic worked. The alien weapons fired at the wrong targets, missing the warship by a hair's breadth. The warship returned fire with everything it had left, striking the alien ships with pinpoint accuracy. The gods had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and then something incredible happened. The alien mothership began to retreat. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the giant ship pulled back, its weapons falling silent. The battle had ended for the moment, and the alien forces, for the first time, seemed unsure of themselves. The gods were retreating, not because they were defeated, but because they hadn't expected to face resistance. The warship floated in the void, battered but still alive. The crew let out a collective breath. They had done the impossible. They had forced the gods to retreat. But they knew this was only the beginning. The gods would return with more firepower, and the warship wasn't ready to take on another full-scale assault. For now, humanity had earned a small victory, but the war was far from over. The hook. With the gods now questioning their own invincibility, how long will humanity's brief victory last? The warship drifted silently in the vast emptiness of space, its once glowing hull now battered and scarred. The crew had won a momentary victory, but they knew better than to celebrate. The gods hadn't been defeated. They had simply been caught off guard. But something had shifted in the air, something humanity had never felt before. For the first time, the gods weren't invincible. In the days that followed the battle, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the warship. The damage had been severe and time was running out. The gods were not known for their mercy. They had been embarrassed, but they were powerful beyond measure. Everyone knew they would return with a vengeance. Back on Earth, the people held their breath. The battle had been broadcast live, and for the first time since the invasion began, hope surged through the population. The gods had underestimated humanity, but now they would be prepared. Humanity had shown that they were more than just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The military leaders on Earth knew that they couldn't rely on the warship alone. It had been their trump card, their secret weapon. But they needed more. They needed more ships, more firepower, and a plan to deal with the gods' retaliatory strike. If the warship had been able to pierce the alien mothership's shields once, it could do it again. But only if they were ready. A new weapon was quickly developed, a fleet of smaller ships built with the same energy core technology that had powered the warship. These ships were designed for speed, maneuverability, and overwhelming firepower. They weren't as powerful as the warship, but together, they could create a force powerful enough to challenge the alien gods. The fleet was quickly assembled, and the plan was set in motion. But as the fleet prepared for battle, the gods made their move. The massive motherships appeared once more, blotting out the stars as they descended upon Earth. The people of Earth watched in terror, knowing that the gods were coming to take their revenge. The gods had been humiliated, and now they were angry. This time, the aliens were ready. Their ships had been upgraded with new weapons, far more destructive than anything they had used before. They were no longer just testing humanity. They were coming to wipe them out. The invasion was no longer a game. It was an all-out war for survival. As the alien fleet approached, Earth's newly formed fleet moved to intercept. The warship, still battered but now fully repaired, led the charge. The smaller ships followed closely behind, each one powered by the same energy core that had given the warship its strength. The battle that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. For hours, the two fleets clashed in a brutal, high-speed war across the stars. The warship and its fleet fought with everything they had. The alien gods, once thought unbeatable, now found themselves struggling to maintain control. Their ships were powerful, but they were not invincible. The small fleet of humanity's ships moved like shadows, striking quickly and efficiently, hitting the aliens where they least expected it. As the battle raged on, the warship's crew realized something crucial. The gods were losing their grip. The overwhelming might of their ships was no match for humanity's ingenuity. The aliens had relied on their superiority for so long that they hadn't considered how quickly humanity could adapt. And now, humanity was using everything in their arsenal to exploit the gods' weaknesses. The gods, seeing their fleet falter, began to panic. Their ships started retreating, but it was too late. The tide had turned. The once dominant invaders were now on the defensive, scrambling to regroup. Humanity's fleet pressed forward, cutting down alien ships with relentless precision. One by one, the gods' ships fell, their once impenetrable forces crumbling beneath the might of humanity's determination. But the final blow came from the warship itself. It had been upgraded with a new weapon, an experimental device capable of disrupting the energy core of the alien mothership. As the warship charged toward the alien flagship, its massive guns firing non-stop, the crew knew this was it. They had to end it now. The warship released the weapon, and in an instant a brilliant burst of energy shot through the alien mothership's defenses. The alien ship shuddered, its hull cracking and breaking apart as the weapon disrupted its core. The gods' flagship, once thought indestructible, was torn apart from within. The gods' power crumbled in the blink of an eye. The remaining alien ships, now leaderless and broken, had no choice but to retreat. The gods had fallen. They were no longer the rulers of the galaxy. The victory, however, came at a high cost. The warship, battered and barely functioning, limped back toward Earth. The battle was over, but the scars it left behind would last forever. Earth had won, but the cost was steep. Humanity had proven its strength, its resilience, and its ability to challenge the gods. But in doing so, they had become something else, something the galaxy had never seen before. Earth had become a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope in a galaxy that once thought humanity was weak. The hook. With the fall of the gods, Earth's place in the universe has changed forever. What will humanity do now that they have proven their power? The aftermath of the battle was silent, a stark contrast to the deafening explosions and blinding lights of the fight. Earth's fleet had destroyed the alien mothership, and the once feared gods had retreated, their ships scattered, their power broken. The warship, now nothing more than a battered and scarred symbol of humanity's struggle, limped back to Earth. The crew had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had once seemed invincible. As the warship returned, Earth's leaders and military forces stood by, watching in awe. The warship's crew was battered and exhausted, their uniforms torn and stained, but their eyes shone with pride. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. But even in their victory, there was no celebration. There was only a quiet understanding that things would never be the same. Humanity had changed. They were no longer the helpless beings they once were. The gods had come, thinking they could crush Earth without a second thought. But they had underestimated the strength of humanity's spirit. And now, the entire galaxy knew it. The leaders of Earth knew this victory wasn't just about defeating the alien invaders. It was about what came next. The gods may have fallen, but the power vacuum they left behind was immense. No one knew what would come after. The galaxy had been thrown into chaos, and it was unclear who would rise to fill the void. Would other alien races see this as an opportunity to challenge humanity? Would they view Earth as a new power, or would they still look at humans as weak, as they had before the invasion? In the coming weeks, Earth became a beacon. The warship that had led the charge was now a symbol of humanity's strength, displayed for all to see. Thousands of ships from other star systems arrived, some friendly, others hostile. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see what Earth would do next. But there was a new energy in the air. Earth, once a small, insignificant planet on the edge of the galaxy, was now a force to be reckoned with. The humans who had fought in the war, the engineers who had built the warship, and the soldiers who had given everything to protect their world. Together, they had proven that they were not just survivors. They were conquerors. The governments of Earth, united by this victory, began to plan their next moves. They knew that the fight against the gods was only the beginning. New alliances had to be formed, new technologies developed, and new strategies put in place. Humanity had been given a chance to carve out its place in the galaxy, and they were determined to make the most of it. Yet, as Earth prepared to step into this new role, there was a lingering question that haunted many. What would happen when the gods returned? The invaders had retreated for now, but they hadn't been destroyed. They would come back, stronger and more determined than before. The warship that had been humanity's savior might not be enough next time. New weapons would have to be developed, new alliances forged, and a new strategy must be crafted. And so, with the victory over the gods came the dawn of a new era. Humanity had proven they were no longer the weak, helpless species they had once been. But as the stars stretched out before them, the road ahead was uncertain. Would they rise to meet the challenges of this new age, or would they fall to new threats, greater than anything they had faced before? As the warship returned to Earth's orbit, its hull glowing with the remnants of battle, the crew looked out at the vastness of space. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and submission. It was a place of endless possibilities. The question remained: would humanity seize this moment, or would they lose everything they had gained? For the first time, the future was in humanity's hands. The universe, once dominated by the false gods, now belonged to Earth, if they were brave enough to claim it. The hook. With the gods defeated and Earth standing tall, the galaxy now knows humanity's true strength. But can they hold on to their newfound power, or will the galaxy's enemies rise again to challenge them?